Hi, and welcome back to the Perek Project. I'm Gila Ross. I'm host of the Power Up podcast. I'm a mum of 8, and I've lived in 4 countries. And actually, on this episode, I'm going to tell you why we recently uprooted our family and moved from beautiful Vancouver, where we were living in Western Canada, to move to the UK. But first, let's take a look at greatness. Nowadays, there's such an emphasis on standing out, on becoming great, on being our best. But what does it actually mean? So we're going to look at what Rabbi Shimon has to tell us, and we're going to see a really fascinating question, because he tells us that there are 3 crowns, and then he goes on to list 4 crowns. What on earth is that about? So he tells us that there are 3 crowns, and these correspond to the 3 foundations of the world. There is the crown of Torah, the crown of our intellect, and there is the crown of priesthood, the priests that served in the temple, that they did the spiritual work on behalf of the rest of the Jewish people. And there is the crown of royalty, and royalty is symbolic of wealth, which allows one to be generous to others. And the 4th one he tells us about, he says, is the crown of a good name. And that one, he says, is in a class of its own. Why? Because the other 3 tell us about the person, but the 4th one, the crown of the good name, is the essence of the person. It's the sum of the parts. It's on a different level than any of the other achievements that a person may achieve. And in fact, if we think about it, the first 3 are gifts. Even wisdom and intelligence that a person needs to study and understand Torah is given from God. Of course, they have to then utilize that gift to be able to understand and apply the Torah. Priesthood, being a priest in the days when we had a temple, that was passed down through the family, through the patriarch. There was no way of becoming a priest if you weren't born into it. And even the wealth that's associated with royalty is a gift from God. But the only thing that is totally in our control is our good name, is our reputation. That's something that we truly earn. And that is why that greatness, the greatness of having a good name, of being a good person, is greater than any other achievement. So how do we achieve this? So in the next Mishnah, we're given a piece of advice that even in today's day, in the age of Google and Alexa, still applies. We're told to exile ourselves to a place of Torah. That means that location is everything. We have to find somewhere to live where we can connect on a soul level with Torah personalities who can teach us. Because Torah is not just an intellectual pursuit. It's not just something that we can learn from books and from Google. It's something that we have to learn from people who have made it part of their personality. And it's not enough for us to live somewhere with the hope that eventually the environment for growth will happen. Because even if it does, we lose the opportunity every single day that we don't have that environment for growth. And some things in life, they do come to us. For example, if God wants us to be wealthy, that will come to us. But the only way to achieve Torah and spiritual growth is to pursue it. And it's not just our mentors who are so important. It's also our peers. Because he tells us that our peers are the ones who are going to help us internalize it. Because peers challenge us. And they help us understand the concepts and internalize the concepts better. We can't just rely on our own understanding. We have to have those peers that we can discuss things with and who challenge us to become better every single day. Interestingly enough, my family had this exact scenario a few years ago. We were living in Vancouver and life was wonderful. The community there was wonderful. Both my husband and myself had fabulous jobs that we loved. And yet, as our kids were getting older, we noticed that the older they were getting, the less of a peer support group that they had. And one of the things that we saw was, because we were working with high school students, we were working with teenage group kids in informal education, we realized how vitally important it is for that age group to have a peer support group if they are to value their Judaism and their spirituality. And we realized that because the community was so small, our kids were not going to have that. And we had to make that difficult decision to get up and to leave what we had behind in Vancouver and move somewhere where our kids would have that infrastructure, where they would have that access to a peer support group who would challenge them and help support them and so that they could love being Jewish. And it was not an easy process for us to go through. We were really lucky that we had mentors that we were able to discuss it with, and that were able to open our eyes and say, you know what? It's time for your kids, that they need to be part of that environment where they can have that peer support group. So when we surround ourselves in an environment of growth, and we realize that no matter where we are in life, we always need to consult with others, that is how we can go and own a truly good name. Thank you for listening. Do you find it easy to connect with a mentor? I'd love to hear from you. You can contact me on Instagram. You can find me there at Gila Ross. And if you benefited from this podcast, please leave us a review, subscribe, and share the word. Thank you so much.